Hello, welcome back. How are you? As you have probably seen, I am here with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about K-pop Western interviews and how I think that some groups are mostly at fault for the awkwardness, not the interviewers. Yikes. Yes, I know, an unpopular opinion. Anyway, let's jump into my explanation. Okay, so this might be a pretty long explanation, that is why I chose to make this a whole video on its own instead of on an unpopular opinions video. This thought has been sitting on my brain for quite a while, and once I saw this come up on Reddit, I knew I had to make a video about this. This video will be sectioned off into 11 parts, some will be longer than others, thoroughly explaining my opinion. Now, let's start off with the groups in question. BTS, Blackpink, NCT, Super M, GOT7, Monster X, 17, Luna, Stray Kids, Twice, and many more. Jesus, I just listed a lot of groups that I will probably never bring up later in the video. Well, these groups that I named are groups that I have actively seen in Western media and interviews. Obviously, some are more popular than others, but what they have in common is that they have been subjected to these foreign environments. But let's talk about the difference between the different types of interviews that they have encountered. Most of these groups have both interviews with real-life interviewers and ones by themselves. I would like to just point that out. These two types of interviews usually change the vibe of the whole interview. Usually, and I say usually, the interviews with outside forces tend to be very awkward and the ones by themselves tend to be more laxed. However, by watching these videos over and over, I notice that a lot of groups mentioned act the same. Interesting. Especially with groups like BTS, GOT7, Twice, Monster X, and ITZY. They seem to act like themselves in both interviews despite having different group dynamics. Some groups are louder than others, but they keep the same energy. They seem genuine, even though in those 5 groups the majority doesn't speak English. Like I have said. Interesting. So it must not be the type of videos for the most part, as I have concluded for myself. Then, I told myself that it might be because of the companies that are interviewing them. And that brings me to the next topic. The entertainment companies that these interviews come from. The most common entertainment channels or companies are BuzzFeed, iHeartRadio, The Ellen Show, The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Vanity Fair, The Zach Sang Show, People, Billboard, Wired, and James Corden. Once again, that is a lot, so let's furtherly split them up. Some are late-night/midday shows that are hosted by popular comedians, some are podcasts that also post on YouTube, some are strictly music-based, and others are fun game-based shows. Some are also longer than others. The ones that are usually musically based or podcast-based tend to be longer than the short game-based videos. An example of the longer ones would be The Zach Sang Show, and an example of the shorter ones is BuzzFeed. I brung this up because I see a lot of fans not taking this into account when discussing a good interview. Some are prone to be more serious than others due to their background and overall audience. People who watch BuzzFeed are usually on the younger side of the spectrum. They won't want to watch a long, serious, and drawn-out video. Most people go to BuzzFeed to have fun, not to know what the artist was thinking while recording their song or writing the lyrics. And people who go to watch Zach Sang interviews are usually looking for a deeper, more serious meaning. They are not looking for a quick game, and that is just the way it is. And this information will tie into how they will act in the interviews. The short interviews are usually more free, and longer ones are more constricted. Just because an idol isn't smiling in an interview doesn't mean the interviewer is not good. Most of the time, it means that they are doing their job right. The idols are actually thinking and trying to give out a proper answer. If you want to see your idol having fun, then go fucking watch a BuzzFeed or Korean variety show, that's their purpose. Stop pressuring others into the Korean mold of an interview. This is not Korea. Things will be different. And I notice most people that complain are those who are from the West, like bitch, have you been so detached from what is going on around you that you forget your own country's customs? Stop kissing up to Korea because I'm pretty sure if you went there, you would be hate crime, and I'm talking to you BIPOCs. Also, I would like to talk about the questions that these idols are given. A lot of these questions are written by writers, not the interviewers, so it kind of angers me to see stans bashing the person who is just reading off what they were given. It seems as if most of you don't have basic human empathy and just froth at the mouth to harass someone. Don't blame those who are just trying to put food on the table. Overall, fans should stop jumping to conclusions and, I don't know, actually look up what you are mad about to validate your opinion. People like you are the reason why the locals think that the majority of K-pop fans are insane. However, I don't want to entirely give these interviewers leeway because this opinion is only guarded to those who have nothing to do with the behind the scenes of the interview. So, here you go, you're about to hear me go in on interviewers that are actually bad. Now, I'm not going to drop names, for obvious reasons, but some interviewers should be ashamed of themselves. Come on now. Knowing their names is that hard? It should take you at most 10 minutes to memorize their names. You have no excuse. You purposefully asked for them to be on your show, how do you not even know their names? And what I find funny is that it happens to groups that have 4 or 5 members. Maybe I could understand if they had 13 like 17 does, but 4 or 5? Are you kidding me? You have to be, because it doesn't make any sense. Do your job. Your job should involve you being respectful to said group, not knowing their names or saying microaggressive comments. Yes, I'm talking about the comments like, your English is really good, to idols who were raised in the West. Imagine how you would feel if someone said that to you when you spent your whole life in a country like America. What if when a white person came up to me, talking in English, I said, oh wow, your English is good. And when I asked where they come from and they said a state in America, I counter with, no, where are you really from? I'm talking about European descent, bitch. Would you like that? No, you wouldn't, so why do you do it? Oh yeah, racism and xenophobia. And I'm talking about real racism and xenophobia, not the performative activism that comes out of most K-pop stans' mouths. It should only take you one quick Google search to find out where they come from. And to those interviewers that come up with their own questions that are straight trash, I despise you, because those are the same people that use more meaningful questions when talking to white artists. However, this only applies to a small few. Most interviewers, in my opinion, aren't at fault. So after taking this long and taxing thought into account, I finally realized something. A group's dynamics is what make the interview at the end of the day, not the interview. Whether you like it or not, a group's attitude plays a big role in an interview. The interview could have the best questions, but if the group isn't engaged, it can become boring and bland. Now, I'm not blaming it all on the groups, but I am not saying it is entirely the interviewer's fault. A big thing that makes an interview would be all the members being free to put in their own input. That means no member should be left out, because as soon as a member is clearly being overlooked, the interview turns sour, in my eyes. Now, most people will blame the interviewer for aiming questions at the members that talk the most, but I find that ludicrous. As a group, you should never have one member be left behind. I have seen other groups purposefully include a member that wasn't included in that question, so why wouldn't you want your idol to do the same? You're enabling them. It's rude to just pretend that the other members are not there, and it seems very vain. And don't say it is because they don't speak English. There are translators for a reason. Also, a member doesn't exactly need to directly answer a question to feel included. An occasional look in their direction can just be enough. I've seen this occur in some groups and it just makes me sad. They sit there without any interaction with the others. And I can't help but to speculate that maybe it's because of something going on behind the scenes. This is just an opinion, but in my experience, I can tell which idols are actually friends and which are being forced to hang around each other. It's pretty obvious, and it greatly affects an interview, especially when you are not a fan. I have watched many groups and something seemed off in my eyes, but when I went into the comment section with all the fans, they seem fine with their idols and their behavior. They blame the interviewer or company on the environment of the interview, and it makes me scratch my head. And maybe it's because I come from an unbiased standpoint from most groups, since I only really stand for, at the moment. Or maybe I'm just tripping and overthinking things. Then I dove into the nature of the interview itself. The company usually controls what the idols can and can't say in interviews, sending things to the press that they shouldn't bring up. Many people don't take this into account. The company tells an interviewer what they can and can't bring up in the interview, and maybe they aren't allowed to ask certain questions that fans are looking for. Also, some of you forget the basis and environment of K-pop. Idols are not artists, most don't participate in the writing process, so why the fuck would you want an unanswerable question to be asked? I saw this happen with Blackpink for example. When they were on the Zach Sang show, they were asked about the creative writing process and the girls froze. You know why? Because they don't participate in the writing process like Western artists do. They don't write the entirety of their lyrics or produce their own songs. And the girls know that, so when they were asked, they dodge the question, trying to make it seem like they do write their songs but just don't think about it that much. No, you just don't participate in the writing and producing process as much, just say that. Say the truth. And a lot of groups are like Blackpink in that aspect. That is why I said in one of my videos that there is a difference between an artist and idol. People like Soyeon and BTS are artists since they write and produce their own music. Those are the people who need to be asked about their creative process when writing and producing, and there is no exception. And I'm not trashing on Blackpink, even though I don't like them as a group. I don't mean to spread hate on them. Stans need to know that being called an idol or idol rapper isn't exactly a negative thing, it just means that you are a performer. It shouldn't have a negative connotation because it's clearly the truth. So, then you think about what else these companies might want to ask these idols. When looking at Western interviews, they ask about their dating life or other things that would be controversial in Korea. Idols don't uphold the same image that a Western artist does, so that means that certain questions can't be asked. They want gossip and K-pop groups can't provide that. Now with personal questions being out of the way and musical questions being out the way, what can these interviewers ask? Nothing. All they can ask is, who is more likely to spend the most money while shopping? And stans get mad, but there is nothing you can do about it for the most part. And this all ties into a cultural barrier, Korea and America colliding. Korea is a conservative country and America is a liberal country. I saw this explained correctly on Reddit, so I am going to put this on the screen. I am also going to link the Reddit post that inspired this video and where the post on the screen can be found, in the description. And when I saw this comment, I just went, wow. That is so true. They are two different people from two different countries. It is going to be awkward. So let me read off the entirety of the post for those who don't want to pause the video. Brace yourself. Here is what it says. Quote, "It really just comes down to cultural differences and language barriers. I think a lot of people fail to realize that this isn't just something that happens in America or to K-pop groups, it happens a lot on both and every side." Eric Kanam, who is obviously someone who has a lot of experience with Korean interviews, talked about this in his interview with Zach Sang. He mentioned how awful a lot of Korean interviews are to Western celebrities, how they ask the same questions, ask what Korean food they like, etc. If I remember correctly, he also mentioned that when they found out that he could speak English, they would be a lot more relaxed, probably because it's just a lot easier to have a connection with someone that speaks the same language as you and in Eric's case, knows and shares the same culture. And this is why interviews in a foreign place are probably always going to be at least a little awkward for celebrities that are from a different culture entirely. Another big thing I have noticed is the fact that in the West, especially America, it is completely normal for people to act friendly even with complete strangers, meaning that they are a lot more comfortable making jokes from the get-go. Small talk with people you don't know is a big thing, banter is a big part of their interviews, etc. So when the jokes and banter don't land as well, there you go. And the thing is, if they tried to do banter the way they do with Western celebrities, I can just already see the stans saying they are being disrespectful. Imagining a K-pop group reacting to some of the things Graham Norton or Conan say to their guests is amusing to say the least. I really think the solution is for companies to let hosts ask more questions, get interviews who understand Korean or are at least genuinely interested in the culture that surrounds K-pop, or at the very least get a good translator. The interviews Bong Joon-ho did aren't bad at all because he had an amazing translator, and he is just a lovable guy that gets along with everyone, that too. End quote. Now that was a mouthful and I agree with basically everything. Imagine being in a foreign country where you don't know their customs. Things are going to come off awkward if you are new. There is no coming around it, and I think that stans know this deep down. It's just that their expectations are beyond screwed. And that brings me to my last point. Fans and their expectations of what an interview should be is another factor to the problem of K-pop interviews. K-pop fans expect so much of their idols. We hold them to such a high standard that we shield them away from the very things that stans preach that they want for their idols, to be treated like other Western artists. How can you hold them to such a standard but also want them to be held to a lower standard at the same time? This is why these interviews are like this. They can't show how they really feel about certain situations, and stans don't see that they are the problem. They blame the interviewer that usually has nothing to do with it. And until this changes or the expectations of idols change, then the interviews won't change as well. So that is the reason why I think that companies and idols are mostly at fault for bad interviews, not the interviewers. And this is an opinion, not a fact, so you are free to disagree with me. And if you do, tell me how you think about this situation in the comments. Also tell me what you think about other K-pop situations or what you want to see me do a video on next. And while you are at it, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Goodbye until next time.